Hello, all. It's time for our daily read aloud of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Well, really, we're reading the Iliad right now, about the sack of Troy. We're going to read books 15 and 16 today. Basically, they're like chapters of it. And if you remember the last one, it's been kind of a back and forth battle so far. We don't know what happened the first 9 years, but what we're seeing right now, it's back and forth battle. Trojans were about to sack them, drive the Greeks back home, protect their city. Then Hera intervened. She put Zeus to sleep and rallied the Greeks, and Poseidon got involved, and it's just been. Now the Trojans are losing. Hector got hit by a boulder, hurting dude. Let's pick up from there. Book 15. By now, the Trojans were on the brink of defeat, but suddenly Zeus awoke from his deep sleep. From the heights of Mount Ida, he turned his gaze towards the plain of Troy and saw the attacking Greeks led by the enraged Poseidon. He saw Hector lying unconscious on the bank of the river Xanthus and immediately understood. He turned to Hera, who sat by him waiting anxiously, and glared at her with flashing eyes. "Ah, so this is what you've been up to," he thundered. "You have tricked me. You had me put to sleep. Beware, Hera," he went on, swollen with divine fury. "You know what my wrath is like. Remember when I hung you by your feet and left you dangling from the clouds? I can do it again." Pale and trembling, Hera answered, "I never prompted Poseidon to go against the Trojans. Believe me, Zeus. If you wish me to, I shall run down to him at once and tell him to leave the field." "No, I shall not send you," replied Zeus. "Instead, you will fetch Iris and Apollo. They will carry out my orders. I have promised Thetis," he went on more calmly, "to do justice to her son Achilles, who Agamemnon has offended, and I shall. The Greeks shall be brought to the brink of defeat and then realize that without Achilles' help they can achieve nothing. When they reach this conclusion, Achilles will take up his arms again. Then I shall let Troy fall and Hector die. Until then," he concluded, "let no one dare stay there. Let no one dare intervene to help the Greeks. And now, Hera, off with you." As quick as lightning, Hera flew to Olympus where the gods, seeing her arrive pale and distraught, gathered round her. "Zeus is much angered," she told them. "Let none of us dare stand in his way. Oh, it is terrible, terrible. Iris," she added, turning to the young divine messenger, "you must run to Poseidon at once and tell him that Zeus commands him to leave the battlefield immediately and not to return there again. Apollo, go at once to Zeus, who wants to send you on a mission. Quickly, do as I say. I am telling you, Zeus is beside himself with anger." Soon after, Iris flew to Poseidon, who, trident in hand, was still inciting the Greeks to battle. "Poseidon," she said, "I bring you an order from Zeus. Leave here, return to your sea, and stay there." Poseidon was livid with anger and real humiliation, but he could not disobey. Reluctant and cursing, he went back to the sea and was immersed by the waves. Meanwhile, Zeus addressed Apollo. "Go down to the banks of the river Xanthus. There you will find Hector unconscious. Give him back his strength and stay by his side. Help him in battle." Apollo swept down from Mount Ida and in a flash appeared before Hector. He had not yet recovered. He was still stunned and out of breath, but had managed to sit up on a stone. "What are you doing here, Hector?" asked the god. "You have been hit, I know. For a while you feared lest you should die. I know that too. But you won't. I am Apollo, and I have been sent by Zeus to tell you to take your post and start after the Greeks again. Stand up. Go and fight. Remember, I shall be by your side." Upon hearing these words, Hector felt all his strength returning to him. He felt his muscles flex and his blood rush through his veins. He stood up, grasped his spear, he picked up his shield, mounted his chariot, and joined the bewildered troops. "Follow me," he bellowed. "Back to the assault, brave Trojans! We must reach the wretched ships and set them on fire. Follow me!" As one, the Trojans followed, facing the enemy again. And again the fortunes of the long battle turned. The Greeks, who thought they had already won, saw Hector fall upon them. Aghast and frightened, they faltered, dismantled the ranks, and fled. The first one to recover his courage was Thoas, who shouted, "Hector is not dead! Zeus is on his side! But let us gather, princes of Greece! Let us cover our army's retreat so as to enable them to form new ranks in defense of the ships!" At this call, the strongest fighters rushed to form a barrier which held back the Trojans for a while. Behind them, in the meantime, the main body of the forces fled in a panic towards the sea. Against Thoas and his men, several Trojan assaults failed, but it was the Greeks who were dying in ever-increasing numbers. "Never mind the dead," Hector shouted to his companions, who stopped to strip the corpses. "Leave their armors and shields. We shall have time to collect them after the victory. Everyone to the ships now, and take the blazing torches with you. Victory is ours!" Like a river bursting its banks and flooding the plain uncontrollably, so the Trojans moved seaward, gathering in close formation around the ships where the Greeks had retreated in a last effort to defend them. Heedless of the arrows and spears raining on him, Hector tried to set fire to the first ship. From the high stern, however, the Greeks protected the ship with the strength of desperation. "Now is the time to die or save ourselves," shouted Aias, trying to infuse courage into his men. To which Hector replied, "Bring the fire! Zeus is with us! When we have destroyed these ships, Troy will be saved!" That was the end of Book 15. It's not looking good. Book 16. While the fighting continued, Patroclus burst into his lord Achilles' tent. Turmoil, shouts, screams, and moans could be heard close by. Yet here in the Myrmidon camp there was perfect order and a strange, eerie silence. In his tent, Achilles, dressed in a simple tunic, sat quietly as though the war he had been so bravely fought in for 9 years no longer concerned him. But seeing Patroclus so distraught, pale, and drenched in perspiration, Achilles' face became somber. "What is the matter with you, Patroclus?" he asked. "You look as though you've been crying. You are crying. Why? Do you bring news of a friend's death? Or do you weep," he added, "because the Trojans are setting fire to the ships?" "Yes, noble Achilles, my lord, that is the cause. Too many are dead and wounded. If you return to battle—" "No," interrupted Achilles. "No, Patroclus. I have been too deeply offended to fight again for Agamemnon." "Then," implored the youth, "at least allow me to fight. Lend me your armor, your helmet, and let me lead the Myrmidons into the field. The Trojans will think I am Achilles, coming to assist the Greeks, and perhaps will not dare press their attack." Achilles hesitated, then said, "So be it. If that is your wish, Patroclus, take my soldiers and fight. Yes," he added, "by saving our ships we are saving our way home. Yes, bring me glory so that Agamemnon will realize his error and will give me back Briseis. But," he went on, looking sternly at his young friend, "hear my advice." Oh, I lost my spot. "Hear my advice. As soon as you have repelled the Trojans from the ships, return to our quarters. Beware of letting yourself being carried away by your longing for victory. Do not follow the enemy. You must not," he insisted. "Take from me the honor of entering the city of Troy. And more importantly, I don't want you to take risks. Drive back the enemy, Patroclus, and then let the Trojans fight on their own. Get ready now," he concluded, rising to his feet. "I shall assemble my men." Patroclus could not suppress a cry of joy, and he began to put on the splendid armor, which even on its own was sufficient to deter any enemy. Meanwhile, Achilles prepared his Myrmidons for battle. "I shall not be the one to lead you to the enemy," he shouted, "but by following Patroclus you shall be following me. Let each of you fight with all his might." The eager men leapt off Achilles' 50 ships. At that moment Patroclus came out of the tent wearing the dazzling armor, and cheers of enthusiasm welcomed him. He jumped into his battle chariot, driven by the charioteer Antimedon, into which were harnessed the formidable horses, Belius and Xanthus, and off he set to battle. Achilles watched him leave, and then returning to his tent, he took out from a richly inlaid chest a cup, from which no other man but he had ever drunk. After cleaning it, he filled it up with wine. "I drink to you, almighty Zeus," he said solemnly. "I am sending my friend Patroclus to battle. Give him strength. Let everyone see that he can fight on his own. Let him drive back the Trojans from the ships, and let him return safe and sound to my camp." With these words he slowly drank and emptied the cup, and Zeus heard his prayer. Of these 2 wishes he granted the first, but not the second. Patroclus was indeed to repel the Trojans, but he was not to return to Achilles' tent. Patroclus and the Myrmidons' arrival infused courage into the Greeks, and at the same time appalled the Trojans, who thought they were facing the invincible Achilles. They drew back, then abandoned a ship to which they had finally set fire. Fighting continued amongst the ships, but under the pressure from Patroclus and his warriors, there was nothing Hector could do but to call back his troops and flee. Many were the Trojans who challenged Patroclus, for they had realized that he was not... Here's a picture real quick I want to show you. Patroclus donning the armor. That he was not Achilles. One by one, the young warriors struck them down. Even the stalwart Sarpedon, king of the Lycians, fell, his heart pierced by a spear. It seemed that Patroclus was just as strong as Achilles, and that nobody could stand in his way. Then Hector drove straight at him in his chariot, steered by Cibriones, the charioteer. Patroclus waited, a spear in one hand and a stone in the other. At the opportune moment he threw the stone with all his strength, which hit Cibriones full on the forehead. He rolled into the dust, while the chariot, no longer steered, veered dangerously. In readiness, Hector jumped off the chariot just in time to push back Patroclus, who had pounced on the charioteer's body. The fierce duel between the 2 warriors soon became a ferocious battle. Around Cibriones' corpse fell a hail of arrows, and the Trojans and the Greeks fought fiercely. Swept by the ardor of the battle, Patroclus forgot Achilles' advice to retire directly after the enemy had been driven away back from the ships. The ships were by now far behind, and Troy was getting closer and closer. There Patroclus ventured, slaying fiercely everything in his way. There he was destined to find his death. Gods are playing a game of chess with these soldiers' life. I don't know how I feel about that.